Hello, I'm Dr. Nika Gueci, and I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Mindfulness, Compassion, and Resilience under the Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovation at Arizona State University. And it is my pleasure to welcome our guest, Dr. Barry Kerzin. Dr. Barry Kerzin is a medical doctor, a Buddhist monk, adjunct professor at the University of Pittsburgh, adjunct professor at Hong Kong University, and honorary professor at the Mongolian National University of Medical Sciences. He is the founder and the CEO of the Altruism in Medicine Institute and founder and chairman of the Human Values Institute in Japan. With AIMI in 2022, he has created a mindfulness compassion app, capital A, capital I, capital M, capital I, lowercase care, to reduce burnout among healthcare professionals. For 33 years, he has providing free medical care to the poor, up to the High Lamas, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Barry has completed a 3-year meditation retreat. His brain has been studied at Princeton University and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He has given 4 TEDx talks and authored 4 books. Welcome, Dr. Kerzin.
Thank you very much.
So the first question is, as we live longer and continue to learn throughout our lives, it's important to prioritize personal development and wellness. This includes navigating life transitions, whether you're graduating from high school, finding a job after college, birth of your first child, deciding to commit to a life partner, or the passing away of a loved one. What are your top 3 coping mechanisms we should all learn to help us navigate any life transition?
It's a lovely question. I think the top priority coping mechanism is a mantra. And the mantra speaks to love and compassion. It speaks to how we're all very similar, if not the same, which is very different from our normal stance, which is to separate. We see differences and we separate. Me and them, me and she, me and her. This mantra brings us back together, recognizes that we're actually sisters and brothers.
And could you share with us what a mantra is?
Yes, so this mantra is basically sound that evokes positive growth. It's a very general understanding of mantra. Most mantras are like Om Mani Padme Hum, the mantra of compassion, or Arapatana Di, the mantra of wisdom, or Om Namo Bhagavate Bekante Guru Bendurya Paraparanjaya Tathagata Rate Samyu Sambudaya Tiate Om Bekante Bekante Maha Bekante Bekante Rata Samagate Soha, the medicine Buddha, healing mantra. But this one is in English, and it directly deals with compassion and unconditional love. And the mantra is she or he or they, just like me, only want to be happy and do not want to hurt. It's a very powerful mantra. And if we remember that mantra every time we meet somebody, oh yes, she, he, they, just like me, want to be happy, don't want to hurt. All of a sudden I've made a connection, a positive connection with that person whom I may know, I may not know. And so then what ensues after that, the conversation, will be more positive. So this, I think, is the top priority. Second would be something we call emotional hygiene. Hygiene, the term borrowed from public health, to clean up. And emotions, we all know emotions. So this is cleaning up our negative, harmful emotions. Not suppressing, but transforming them into their healthy opposites. So what I'm talking about, if we take anger, for example, learning ways to recognize anger early when we can work with it. When we're blown out of the water with anger, we can't work with it. So learning early signs and symptoms of anger. And then when we notice we're in that early state going towards anger, we apply a method. For example, we imagine a cloud in the sky, and it drifts across the sky and then just completely dissipates. And that cloud actually is our pre-anger stuff. So as it drifts and dissipates completely, our early anger is gone. Now, this is guaranteed not to work the first time. We've been getting angry since we were kids. We have ingrained habits from a long time. But if you're persistent and apply this method again and again, using mindfulness to look in and identify early anger stuff, and then apply the method over and over again, it'll work. It's worked for me. I rarely get angry anymore. And if I do, it's not very intense. And maybe the third would be healthy self-confidence. So the healthy self-confidence is finding the middle ground between self-doubt, self-criticism, feeling like an imposter. And we do a lot of that stuff. Yeah, we put ourselves down a lot. And on the other extreme, doing the opposite. We get puffed up, feel we're better than others, right? We know everything. So it's navigating the waters, finding that middle way between, putting ourselves down and putting others down. I think that would be maybe the third important sort of core message that I try to live my life by, and that's what I teach others to help guide others.
3 very valuable messages. So a mantra to kind of reduce the distance between ourselves and others, recognizing emotions so that we can better regulate them and understand them, and a healthy self-confidence. Excellent, thank you. So the second question is, how do we identify and prioritize the personal development needs that are most important for our goals?
Yeah. So self-compassion, particularly in this culture, this sort of multiplicity of cultures in America, is very, very important, because we suffer from an epidemic, and it's probably broader than the US, it's probably a pandemic, of self-deprecation, of self-criticism, self-doubt, of imposter syndrome. So therefore, to counter that, to get us kind of to a healthy place, to have a good foundation for our compassion for others, we need to have compassion for ourselves. And so that involves being gentle to ourselves. It involves being kind to ourselves, and some little specifics that we can do. At the end of the day, what do we usually remember?
What went wrong?
What went wrong, exactly. We focus in on that, and that kind of brings us down, We think we're not good enough, we're a bad person, or, we're just not up to the mark. But we've done a lot of other stuff that is good, we feel good about, but we don't recognize it. So my suggestion is recognize everything you've done in the day. And probably 80 or 90% of it's going to be good stuff. You're going to feel good about it. And 10 or 15 or 20%, well, I could have done that different. So remember all of it, and even celebrate the stuff that went well. That's important to help bring up that low self-esteem to healthy self-confidence. So that's, I think, the beginning of self-compassion. Other things like, do things that you like to do, take care of yourself that way. It's okay to do it. Some people think, oh, I get guilty, it's selfish, I can't do that. Yeah, maybe that's true if you stop there and you only do stuff to fulfill yourself. But if you're doing it to set a foundation so you can be really healthy to help others and have that motivation, it's not selfishness. And therefore, guilt is not part of the equation.
And so many times we really do think about self-care as being selfish, right? And it's so easy to fall back into what we did wrong versus what we did right, and to not celebrate even just the small accomplishments throughout the day.
Yes, exactly. The other thing here, which I think is really important, is expectations on ourselves. We tend to be high achievers. Yeah, and high achievers have these very high self-expectations. Now, self-expectations are wonderful, they motivate us, we grow, but if they're too high, we can't meet them and we have a sense of failure. So the suggestion is to slightly reduce our self-expectations so that we can actually meet those expectations, have a sense of fulfillment, and then set a new expectation.
Not lose our ambitions and our goals and our dreams.
Correct. Always have those self-expectations, but if they're too high, if we set the, at perfection, we're not going to reach it because we're human beings, yeah? But so just slightly reduce it. It'll make it easier for us. We can meet those expectations, feel good about them, and then set new expectations.
Again, celebrating the small wins too.
Exactly.
Thank you. So with the scale of our world's challenges, finding solutions can seem overwhelming. How do we address systemic problems in a way that can be impactful?
I have two thoughts here. One is expectations. The complex problems in the world are not easily solved, obviously. And if we kind of have that assumption that we can do it, we can solve the world's problems, that's unrealistic. And we've put a self-expectation on ourselves too high. And so we're going to keep hitting our head against the wall and hitting failure and get upset, get depressed, and give up. Maybe get burnt out. On the other hand, if we look at maybe small areas where we think we can make a difference, focus on that, work on that, and if we can make some difference, we can then expand the scope. I think this is more realistic. Number two, to try to work on reducing our anger, often frustration with the world's problems, and there are a tremendous amount of world's problems facing us. Many people, the younger generation, the Gen Z and the younger generation, have given up hope, have given up relationship or given up having children because they don't see a future. So there are very significant problems facing us. If we get totally depressed and as a result of that get paralyzed, then we can't do much. So that doesn't help us, it doesn't help society. So what's really important is to try to maintain a sense of healthy self-confidence, maintain a sense of optimism, but also prepare for the worst, a sense of realism. And that's what His Holiness the Dalai Lama often counsels us. He says, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So it's a blend of optimism and realism.
And find those spaces where you can make a difference.
Exactly. And try to keep the anger at bay. So we have ways to work with transforming anger into tolerance. And it doesn't mean that, we lose our sort of grittiness, and our sort of, our passion to fight injustice. It doesn't mean that at all, because compassion is all about fighting injustice. So it's kind of a tough love, but inside there's no anger. And that's kind of where we're trying to move to maintain our fight against injustice, environmental injustice, human injustice, gender injustice, racial injustice, etc. At the same time, inside we don't get angry. And part of that is recognizing that the so-called perpetrators' enemies, for example, the C-suite of the big oil companies, or we can go on and on. We can have tremendous anger towards those people and want to almost be violent, but that doesn't solve anything. If we begin to recognize their limitations and the fact that what they're doing is going to bring so much suffering to them in the future, then it's easier for us to have a conversation with them to try to change things. If we just, keep a distance and are terribly angry, and we're not going to really be able to engage and try to make real change.
And mindfulness can help us understand the kinds of changes that we are able to make by having self and other awareness. Okay, last question. We often hear from folks who are committed to and deeply involved with systemic change, whether that change is geopolitical, environmental, or social. but they're fatigued at the lack of seeming progress or movement within their causes or organizations. How can we both protect ourselves from burnout and overwhelm while helping our organizations move forward toward our goals?
Yeah, it's a tough one. This is not easy. I think compassion is the key here. Compassion towards everyone, even the so-called perpetrators. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that every day he makes prayers for the hardliners in China and even for the prison guards who are torturing and killing his people. Now, there's a caveat. We distinguish the person from the actions of the person. The actions of the person, particularly if they're harmful, those actions and that person who performed those actions have to be held accountable. Usually it's by law. In some communities, there may be other systems of accountability, nonviolent accountability, but basically by law. And so that means that the person, even the person that's done harmful things, has this potential for goodness. Everyone has that. And recognizing that, we have compassion for the person. On the other hand, when he, she, or they do things that are harmful to others, they have to be held accountable. And the accountability is twofold. One, if they've harmed others, they have to be held accountable for that. Number two, if they're doing actions that hurt others, they are going to suffer tremendously in the future because of those actions. So we're also helping them by trying to rein in those harmful actions. So it's twofold. Now, the second thing I'd like to mention is moving beyond empathy to compassion. When we practice empathy, which is standing in the other person's shoes, we're so close that we get overwhelmed emotionally. We lose our cognitive ability to think straight how we can help relieve the suffering. So by taking a half step back emotionally, keeping the heart open, this is compassion. And as a result, we're less likely to take on the pain of the other person, which is what we often do inadvertently when we practice empathy. And that leads to burnout. So if we can take this half step back emotionally, practice compassion, bring in the other cognitive, intellectual stuff to help keep the heart open, to help reduce or eliminate the suffering, we're much less likely to burn out because we're not so enmeshed right on top of the other person, which is the stance of empathy.
I think that distinction between compassion and empathy is excellent because it does allow us to not become too embroiled within the other person and to actually help.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Dr.
These
Kerzin.
were quite amazing questions, by the way.
Thank you.